The night had grown thick, a heavy curtain of darkness that swallowed the lonely highway ahead. I had been driving for hours, the gas gauge on my dashboard ominously flirting with the dreaded E. Panic stirred within me as I scanned the desolate landscape, searching for any sign of salvation on this desolate stretch of road. Just when desperation was about to overtake reason, a faint glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. In the distance, barely visible through the shroud of night, stood a solitary gas station. Its name, Moonlight Gas, was emblazoned on a rusted sign, the irony of the name not lost on me in the absence of any moonlight on this particular night. With a sense of relief and a touch of trepidation, I guided my car toward the beckoning light. The gravel crunched beneath my tires as I pulled into the station, and the creaking of my car doors shattered the eerie silence that had blanketed the night. The gas station's neon lights, flickering intermittently, cast an eerie glow that seemed to dance with the shadows. The long shadows of the derelict gas pumps stretched out towards me like skeletal fingers, and I couldn't help but feel as though I had entered a place untouched by time, forgotten by humanity. Approaching the ancient fuel pumps, I couldn't ignore the shivers that raced down my spine. The metallic clank of the nozzle was harsh and unforgiving, echoing through the desolation. It was as if the very act of fueling my car was an intrusion into the past, disturbing the long-forgotten memories of this forsaken place. The gas station itself was a relic of a bygone era. The metal pumps were old and tarnished, and the faded advertisements for long-extinct products still clung to the weathered walls. The dim, yellowish light that spilled from the station's windows seemed to highlight the peeling paint and the cracks in the concrete. It was as though the very essence of this place resisted the passage of time, unwilling to release its hold on the past. With a deep breath, I picked up the nozzle, its metallic surface cool to the touch. The mechanical rhythm of the pump seemed to fill the night, creating a haunting cadence in the stillness. As I watched the gas flow into my tank, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. In the reflection of the station's grimy windows, I glimpsed a fleeting figure, just barely distinguishable in the dim light. My heart quickened, and I turned to confront the shadowy stranger, but they had vanished, leaving only a lingering sense of unease that seemed to hang in the air like a heavy mist. I tried to dismiss the encounter as a trick of my tired mind, a hallucination brought on by the desolation of this place. I continued to pump gas, my fingers trembling slightly. But then I heard it, an almost imperceptible whisper, a voice carried by the chilling night breeze. It was as if someone, or something, was beckoning me from the shadows. I strained to hear, but the words were elusive, slipping through my grasp like smoke. The tension in the air was palpable, and my senses were on high alert. I scanned the empty parking lot, my gaze darting between the ancient fuel pumps and the darkness that surrounded me. It was then that I noticed a tattered, handwritten note affixed to the gas station's door. In the dim light, the note's message was barely legible, but I squinted to read it. The message read, "Beware the night, for it hides secrets you may never escape." Those cryptic words sent a shiver down my spine, and I couldn't help but wonder about the horrors that might be concealed in this forsaken place. The tension and suspense were reaching a crescendo, and I was left with the unshakable feeling that something was terribly amiss. With trembling hands, I completed filling my tank and retreated to the safety of my car, leaving the haunting gas station behind. But the feeling of being watched, of being pursued by an unseen presence, didn't leave me. The tension had reached its peak, and my mind raced with questions about the mysteries hidden within those rusted walls. As I drove away from that ominous place, the road stretched on endlessly, disappearing into the abyss of the night. The echoes of the gas station's enigmatic mysteries remained with me, a chilling reminder that the human fear of the unknown is a formidable force, one that can grip even the bravest soul and leave them forever scarred by the terrors they encounter in the dead of night. the memory of that gas station would stay with me, a tale to be recounted with trepidation, and a reminder that the power of the unknown and the human fear it can evoke is a force that can transcend time and place. The world is a vast and mysterious place, and sometimes the darkest secrets are hidden in the most ordinary of locations. The night was shrouded in darkness, a thick veil that seemed to envelop the desolate highway ahead. My journey had led me into the heart of nowhere, and as I continued down the isolated road, my car's gas gauge had ominously dipped towards empty. With each passing mile, the tension within me had grown, knowing that I needed to find a place to refuel soon. That's when I stumbled upon the gas station, or what was left of it. Time had not been kind to this place, and it appeared to be a relic from another era, as if it had been forgotten by the relentless march of progress. As I pulled into the station, the world around me seemed to fall into a surreal silence, like a forgotten memory. The once bright fluorescent lights overhead flickered intermittently, casting eerie, rhythmic shadows on the cracked and worn pavement. A gust of bone-chilling wind swept through the empty pumps, creating a haunting howl that seemed to echo through the night. The place exuded a sense of desolation, and it felt as if the very atmosphere held its breath in anticipation of something otherworldly. It was a place that had been abandoned by both time and people, and the weight of its history hung heavily in the air. I stepped out of my car and onto the frigid pavement, the silence around me almost deafening. It was as if the asphalt beneath my feet absorbed sound, creating a vacuum of emptiness. I couldn't help but wonder who had let this place deteriorate into such a state of decay. The gas station stood as a stubborn relic, refusing to release its grip on the past. Approaching the fuel pump with trepidation, I couldn't ignore the rusty nozzle's pitiful groans as I picked it up. The act of inserting it into my fuel tank felt like an intrusion into a forgotten world. The dim, eerie hum of electricity in the background seemed like the whispers of restless spirits, their voices lost in the winds of time. As I filled my tank, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. In the reflection of the cracked and grimy windows, I glimpsed a shadowy figure standing just beyond the reach of the dim light. My heart raced, and my breath quickened as I turned around to confront the figure. But it had vanished, leaving me with a sense of dread that settled like a heavy fog. The tension and suspense continued to build, and as I completed my refueling, an unexpected gust of wind seemed to carry with it a message. It was as if the night itself had a voice, whispering cryptic messages into my ears, messages that stirred an uneasiness within me. My gaze was drawn to the gas station's door, where a handwritten note had been pinned. In the dim light, the note's message was barely legible, and it read, "The night conceals the truth you may never want to see." Those words sent shivers down my spine, and I struggled to decipher their meaning. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of impending revelation. Leaving the gas station behind, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being pursued by an unseen presence. The tension and suspense had reached a fever pitch, and I was consumed by the question of what secrets lay hidden within that forsaken place. The road ahead stretched endlessly, and I couldn't help but ponder the depths of human fear. It was not just the fear of the unknown, but the fear of places that time had forgotten, places haunted by their own history. It was the fear of isolation and the inexplicable terrors that lurked just out of sight. As I drove on, the memory of that night lingered, and I couldn't escape the feeling that I had left something behind, something I might never fully understand. The story of that gas station had become a part of me, a reminder of the enigmatic power of the unknown and the human fear it can invoke. And as the miles rolled on, I was left with the haunting thought that some mysteries may be better left unsolved, for they hold the potential to forever alter our perception of reality. The night was oppressively dark, the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow everything in its path. I found myself on an unfamiliar, desolate stretch of highway, my car's gas gauge perilously close to empty. It was the kind of remote road that horror stories are born from, winding through a thick, ancient forest that whispered secrets in the howling wind. In the distance, the glimmer of neon lights beckoned me like a moth to a flame. The only sign of civilization for miles was an old, rundown gas station that appeared to be frozen in time. The gas station's flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows that seemed to come to life in the frigid night. The wind was biting, and as I stepped out of my car, it sent a shiver down my spine. There was an unsettling emptiness to the place, not a single soul in sight. A forgotten relic of a bygone era, the gas station was a haunting reminder of the passage of time. The rusted sign above the pumps creaked in the wind, and the once vibrant paint had faded into a ghostly, peeling mural of long-forgotten products. The dim, yellowish glow cast eerie shadows across the cracked concrete, and the wind howled like the distant cries of the damned. Approaching the ancient fuel pump, I couldn't escape the sense that this place had been left untouched by the hands of time. The harsh metallic clank of the nozzle seemed to reverberate in the silence. I inserted it into my gas tank, my hands trembling in the cold. The tension continued to mount, as if the world itself was holding its breath. It was then that I noticed something strange in the window's reflection. A figure, partially hidden in the shadows, standing eerily still. My heart raced as I turned, but there was no one there. The tension reached its peak, and a chill ran down my spine, like icy fingers tracing my back. I tried to dismiss it as a trick of my imagination, the product of the isolation and the surreal atmosphere. But as I fumbled with the pump, I heard an unsettling whisper in the wind. It sounded like a voice, barely audible, beckoning me from the darkness, a siren's call from a world that shouldn't exist. As I scanned the emptied parking lot, I felt an inexplicable sense of dread. It was then that I noticed a tattered, handwritten note affixed to the gas station's door, almost invisible in the dim light. It read, "Beware the night, for it hides things you cannot fathom." My hands trembling, I completed filling my tank, each drop of gasoline seeming to echo like a funeral bell in the night. I rushed back to the car, my footsteps echoing loudly in the unnatural silence. As I drove away from that forsaken place, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, pursued by an unseen presence. The tension and suspense had reached their zenith, leaving me with a sense of profound unease that refused to subside. As I left that gas station behind, I couldn't help but wonder about the human fear that resides within us all. The fear of the unknown, of being isolated in the darkest of hours, and of the inexplicable terrors that may lurk just out of sight. The road ahead seemed endless, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had left something behind, something I might never fully understand. Human fears can be both rational and irrational, and that night, I experienced a chilling combination of both. With every mile that passed, I tried to rationalize the events, dismissing them as mere tricks of the mind. But the unsettling sensation of that gas station clung to me, a reminder that the world holds mysteries we may never comprehend, and that sometimes, the darkness is more than just the absence of light. To this day, I can't help but wonder if that note on the door was meant as a warning or a message from someone who had experienced the same unease that haunted me that night. Regardless, it was an experience that left me with a newfound appreciation for the power of the unknown and the very human fear it can evoke, a fear that lingers like a ghostly presence in the darkest corners of our minds.